When I first started exploring haunted places across America, I never imagined Georgia would leave such a deep mark on me. There's something different about the air here. Heavy, still, almost as if it remembers everything that ever happened. From silent plantations to old prisons and hotels that refuse to rest, every corner of this state carries whispers of the past. I've walked through halls where the temperature suddenly dropped, heard footsteps in empty corridors, and felt eyes watching me when no one was there. These are not just stories. These are real places where the past never truly left. If you love exploring real haunted places and true ghost stories, make sure to subscribe. There's so much more waiting to chill your spine. 1. Sorrel Weed House, Savannah, Georgia. When I first stepped into the Sorrel Weed House in Savannah, the air felt heavy, not just with heat, but with something older, something I couldn't explain. The late afternoon light spilled through the tall windows, painting the dust in golden swirls, yet every step I took echoed like I was not the only one walking there. I had read stories about this place, how it was once home to Francis Sorrel, his wife Matilda, and an enslaved woman named Molly. But reading and feeling are two different things. That day, I felt the story breathing around me. I remember standing in the main hall, staring up at the grand staircase. It was beautiful, but unsettling, the kind of beauty that hides pain underneath. My guide's voice faded as I imagined Matilda's last moments, how they said she jumped from the balcony after discovering her husband's betrayal. I looked up at that very balcony, and for a second, I swear I saw a shadow move, soft and quick, like someone turning away in sadness. I blinked, and it was gone. Maybe the light played tricks on me, but my heart didn't think so. Downstairs, the air changed. It got colder, even though Savannah's humidity usually wraps around you like a blanket. The guide said this was the area connected to the servants' quarters, where Molly once lived. The story goes that after Matilda's death, Molly was found hanging in the same room where I was now standing. I can't describe the silence there. It wasn't peaceful, it was loaded, like the walls had been holding a scream for over a century. I took out my phone to record, and as soon as I pressed the button, the light flickered. A long, slow flicker. Everyone froze. Then the sound. Not loud, not clear, just a faint sigh that came from the corner. My pulse jumped. One of the other visitors whispered, "Did you hear that?" We all had, but no one wanted to say it aloud. The guide tried to keep calm, saying, "Old buildings make sounds." But I've been in plenty of old houses. They don't breathe like that. Later, when the tour ended, I stayed behind for a few minutes. I wanted to feel the house without the chatter. The floors creaked under my shoes as I walked back through the dim hallway. That's when I noticed something strange, a smell of perfume, old-fashioned and faint, like something my grandmother once wore. There was no one around me, but it lingered, moving past me slowly, as if someone had brushed by. Standing by the front door, I turned around one last time. The Sorrel Weed House looked perfectly still, but there was a weight in that silence, a sadness that clung to the air. I walked out into the bright Savannah evening, but even as the sunlight hit my face, I felt that shadow of sorrow follow me out, quiet, invisible, but real. That night, when I played back the short video clip I had recorded, I heard something that wasn't there before, a whisper, so faint it almost blended with the background noise. It said just two words, "Go home." I didn't sleep well after that. Some places hold on to what happened inside them, the pain, the love, the betrayal, and they don't let go easily. The Sorrel Weed House isn't just haunted because of ghosts, it's haunted because the stories that began there never truly ended. 2. The Marshall House Hotel, Savannah, Georgia. The first night I spent at the Marshall House in Savannah still lives inside my mind like a scene I can't forget. I checked in just before sunset, the golden light slipping through the old glass windows of the lobby. Everything felt too calm, that kind of quiet that hides something beneath it. The wooden floors creaked softly, as if they were whispering secrets, and the faint smell of lemon polish mixed with something older, something metallic, almost like blood. I had read about this place being one of the oldest hotels in Savannah, built in 1851 and used as a Civil War hospital. I thought it would be interesting. History mixed with a touch of legend. But standing there, waiting for my room key, I felt a strange chill climb up my spine. The receptionist smiled kindly, yet her voice carried that careful tone you use when you don't want to talk about something real. When she handed me my key, she paused a second longer than she needed to, as if to say something, but didn't. My room was on the 3rd floor. The hallway stretched long and dim, lit by weak yellow lamps. Every step echoed through the corridor. I remember thinking the place looked too beautiful to be haunted. White doors, polished handles, perfect old-fashioned decor. But beauty can fool you. The first thing I noticed when I entered my room was the sound. Faint, like footsteps pacing above me. But there wasn't a floor above. I brushed it off, telling myself old buildings make noises. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of something rolling. It was slow, steady, like a cartwheel. Then came a metallic rattle. For a moment, I thought it was from the street, but when I looked out the window, the street was empty. The sound was inside, just outside my door. I held my breath, listening. The rattling stopped. Then, a soft knock. 3 times. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I forced myself to open the door, but the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. The air, however, felt colder, heavier, like walking into a place that remembered pain. When I turned back into my room, the sound started again, this time from inside, near the bathroom. I could almost hear faint whispers, like soldiers talking quietly in another language, a mix of exhaustion and fear. At that moment, the lights flickered, once, and I caught a glimpse in the mirror. A shadow behind me, standing still. It was gone when I turned, but the scent of antiseptic filled the air, sharp and strong. Just for a second. The same smell hospitals have. The same smell they say never left this building. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. In the morning, I went downstairs and mentioned it to one of the staff. She gave me a small, uneasy smile and said, softly, "You must have stayed in one of the old hospital rooms. The doctors used to line up the injured right where the beds are now." I nodded, pretending to smile, but inside, I knew what I felt wasn't imagination. Some things don't stay buried. Not memories, not pain, not even the whispers of those who never left. The Marshall House looks calm in daylight, but at night it remembers. And once you've heard those echoes, you carry them with you forever.
3. Central State Hospital, Milledgeville, Georgia. I'll never forget the first time I walked through the gates of Central State Hospital in Milledgeville, the faded by decades of sun and rain. For years I had heard the stories, how this was once the largest mental hospital in the world, home to tens of thousands of forgotten souls. But no amount of reading could prepare me for how it felt to stand there. The wind carried the smell of damp earth and old brick. Trees had grown wild, wrapping their roots around the cracked sidewalks. In front of me stood endless red brick buildings, each with boarded-up windows and peeling white paint. It was hard to believe that not so long ago this was a living place, full of doctors, nurses, patients, and heartbreak. I walked toward one of the old wards. The door was half open, swaying slightly in the breeze. As soon as I stepped inside, the temperature dropped. My flashlight beam caught long hallways with peeling walls and broken tiles. I could still see faded numbers above the doors, room 212, 213, and I couldn't help but imagine the people who once slept there. Some say more than 25,000 patients were buried in unmarked graves on this property. That number hung in my mind as I moved deeper inside. Then I heard it, a soft shuffling, like someone dragging their feet across the floor. I stopped. The sound stopped too. My heart began to pound. I told myself it was just wind moving debris. But then came another noise, a slow, low hum, like someone murmuring under their breath. I turned the flashlight toward the far end of the hallway, and that's when I saw it. a flicker of movement, just for a second, a figure crossing from one doorway to another. I called out, thinking maybe someone else had broken in. No answer, only silence. The hum had stopped, replaced by a faint tapping. 1, 2, 3, coming from the room I had just passed. I hesitated, every instinct screaming to leave, but curiosity pushed me forward. I leaned through the doorway, shining my light across the room. Empty, just broken furniture, a rusted bed frame, and a single old shoe lying in the corner. That's when the light flickered and went out completely. My chest tightened. In the dark, I could hear faint breathing, not mine, slower, heavier. I fumbled for my phone, its dim screen barely enough to see the outline of the door. When I finally stepped back into the hall, the light came on again, steady and bright, as if nothing had happened. Outside, the sky had started to turn orange with sunset. I remember standing by the gate, looking back one last time. The building seemed quiet again, but I knew what I had felt in there wasn't my imagination. Some places carry echoes of the lives that ended inside them. At Central State, those echoes don't fade, they wait. And once you hear them, you never really forget the sound. 4. Ellis Hotel, former Winecoff Hotel, Atlanta, Georgia. I still remember the day I first drove into Leon Mountain, deep in the northern reaches of New York. The road twisted through thick forests and climbed higher until the air grew colder and thinner. I had seen pictures of this ghost town before, but nothing compared to standing there in person. The silence was so heavy that even the crunch of gravel under my boots sounded too loud, as if I was disturbing something that had been sleeping for decades. Most people don't know that Leon Mountain was once alive, a proud mining town where iron ore built dreams and broke men at the same time. Walking through the narrow streets, I could almost hear the echoes of miners shouting to one another, the clang of tools striking rock, and the laughter of families who once believed their town would last forever. But now, all that was left were crumbling wooden houses, shattered glass, and the hollow wind whispering through open doors. As I stepped inside one of the old homes, a sudden wave of chill ran down my spine. The air smelled of dust and rust, but underneath it was something else, something metallic, like old blood. The wallpaper peeled away in long strips, and the floor creaked under my weight. On a broken table lay a rusted tin lunchbox with the name Tommy carved into the lid. I couldn't help but imagine a little boy waiting for his father to come home from the mine, maybe on a cold evening that never ended. I walked toward the old mine entrance, half buried under weeds and thyme. The wooden beams above it were cracked and blackened, and a sign nearby warned, "Danger, do not enter." But curiosity has a strange pull. I crouched low and peered inside. The darkness swallowed everything. It felt endless, like the earth itself was breathing. I called out once softly, "Hello?" My voice bounced back, thinner each time, until it faded completely. For a moment, I thought I heard faint tapping deep inside, like someone still working down there. I stood frozen, trying to convince myself it was just the sound of water dripping. By the time the sun began to set, the mountain's shadow stretched across the town like a giant hand. I turned back toward my car, but something made me stop. A light flickered in one of the windows of a distant house. It was faint, yellow and unsteady, like the glow of an old lantern. I waited, staring, but when I blinked, it was gone. Even now, months later, I can still feel Leon Mountain's emptiness inside me. The people left, but something stayed behind. Something, watching, waiting, remembering, and sometimes late at night, I think about that light in the window, and I wonder if maybe the miners never truly left at all.
Point 5. Colonial Park Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. It was late autumn when I decided to visit Pottersville, or what was left of it, an old hamlet in Warren County, New York. Most people drive past it without even realizing they've just crossed the ghost of a once lively town. I didn't come here by accident. I'd found a faded photograph in an antique shop, a picture of a family standing in front of a small wooden inn with Pottersville written on a sign behind them. Something about their eyes, the emptiness in them, pulled me in. When I arrived, the wind was cold and sharp, carrying the smell of wet leaves and distant pine. The main road curved through what used to be the heart of the town, now just a stretch of cracked pavement surrounded by leaning houses. The silence felt strange, not peaceful, but tense, like the whole place was holding its breath. I parked my car near what looked like an abandoned general store. Its door hung open slightly, creaking each time the wind blew. Inside, the dust was thick. Old cans lined the shelves, labels faded to pale ghosts of color. I stepped carefully, my flashlight beam sweeping across a broken counter. That's when I saw something that made me stop. A newspaper, brittled with age, dated August 1929, the year the mine nearby shut down. The headline read, "Pottersville Families Forced to Leave, Town to be Abandoned." I tried to imagine the chaos, the heartbreak, the families who had to walk away from everything they had built. I walked further down the road and found a small church at the edge of the woods. Its steeple was leaning, and vines crawled up its sides like fingers trying to pull it back into the earth. I pushed the door open. The sound echoed through the empty hall. Inside, rows of wooden pews stood covered in dust, and sunlight cut through broken windows, scattering golden rays across the floor. For a second, I thought I heard a faint hum, a woman's voice, soft and distant, singing an old hymn. My heart froze. I turned around, expecting someone to be there, but no one was. Only the wind moving through the broken glass. I left Pottersville that evening with a heavy feeling in my chest. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still see that flicker of movement behind the window and hear that faint, lonely song echoing in the church. Pottersville may have been abandoned by people, but it hasn't been forgotten. Something, or someone, still remembers every story buried there.